My son said, "Mama, I'm going to check the brakes. You're getting old. It's too dangerous for you to drive." The day after that, I found a tracker stuck underneath my car. Instead of raising a fuss, I quietly removed it and sent it straight to the police precinct. 3 hours later, I got the call that chilled me to the bone. Folks, before I start this tough story, I have a small request for you. Please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It helps stories like this get heard. And let me know in the comments what city you're listening from. It always warms my heart to see how many of us there are. Enjoy the listen. My deep burgundy sedan was never just a collection of steel, pistons, and rubber to me. For a woman my age, who had spent her life on her feet slinging plates and mugs, this car was something more. It was my fortress, my private, untouchable space where I didn't owe anyone anything. The interior always smelled like peppermint, and that distinct briny scent of the cool ocean air that clung to the upholstery after my Sunday trips down to the coast. Those drives were my only ritual, the time when Olympia May Jones stopped being the former waitress, the mother, or the grandmother. I was just a woman staring at the horizon. I knew every sound that engine made. I felt the slightest vibration of the wheel, the way a mother feels the breath of a sleeping child. That's why, when my son, Anthony, or Tony as we call him, started talking about safety, something inside me clenched. Not out of fear, no, but from a heavy sense of foreboding. It didn't start all at once. First there were little hints, then persistent requests. But this Sunday, it blew up into a flat-out demand. Tony and his wife, Angela, or Angie, came over for lunch. I set the table in the living room. Meatloaf, the kind Tony loved since he was a boy. My famous mac and cheese, collard greens, and baked chicken. The table was full, but the atmosphere was heavy, like the air right before a thunderstorm. Angie, in her immaculate beige pantsuit, sat with her back ramrod straight, picking distastefully at her plate with a fork. She always looked at my house as if calculating how long it would take to tear the whole thing down. "Olympia May," she started, not even looking at me. "Tony and I were looking at brochures for a nice assisted living facility outside the city. They have pine trees, fresh air, and 24-hour medical care. At your age, living alone in a house with so many stairs and drafts is just irresponsible." I calmly cut a piece of chicken and put it on my son's plate. "I'm doing just fine, Angie, and those stairs are good for my heart." Tony put down his fork. He looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes, and his gaze was shifty, nervous. "Mom, it's not just the house," he said, trying to make his voice sound firm. "It's the car. You've been getting careless. Last week, I saw a scratch on the bumper, and today, when you parked, the engine was making a strange knocking sound." "The engine runs like a Swiss watch," I countered. My voice was level, though a cold anger was beginning to simmer inside me. "I changed the oil 2 weeks ago." "You don't hear it because your hearing isn't what it used to be." Tony raised his voice, something he rarely did. "Mom, I don't want you to crash on the interstate. I'm going out right now to check everything myself, especially the brakes. I think there's some dangerous play in them." After lunch, he actually went outside. I watched through the kitchen window as he took off his suit jacket, rolled up the sleeves of his expensive shirt, and crawled under the car. He stayed down there for an unnaturally long time for a simple check. Angie stood on the porch, smoking a skinny cigarette and typing something on her phone, ignoring her husband completely. After half an hour, Tony came back in, wiping his hands with a rag. His face was grim, almost tragic. "It's bad, Mom," he announced, avoiding my eyes. "The brake lines are worn, critically. It's strictly forbidden for you to drive. Absolutely. I can't let you get behind the wheel until I take it to a specialist. I'll make arrangements this week. I'll take the car, but I need to go to the farmer's market on Tuesday." "No market," he snapped. "You want to cause a wreck? You want us to be planning your funeral? Leave the keys on the nightstand." They left, leaving behind the heavy scent of Angie's expensive perfume and a thick residue of anxiety. Night fell on the city, but sleep wouldn't come. I lay there listening to the quiet of the house. My son's words kept turning over in my mind. Critically worn. I had been driving for 40 years. I knew how the pedal felt when the brakes were tired. My car was fine. I didn't doubt it for a second. Why was he lying? Around midnight, I got up, draped my old knitted shawl over my shoulders, and grabbed my flashlight. The garage met me with cool air and the familiar smell of gasoline and oil. I walked up to my sedan and ran my palm over the cold metal of the fender, as if soothing a loyal animal. I'm no mechanic, but life had taught me to understand the things my safety depended on. I lay down on the cold concrete floor and shined the light under the chassis, right where Tony had been messing around. The brake lines were whole, dry, without a single crack, no fluid leaks. Everything was perfect. I was just about to crawl out, breathing a sigh of relief, when the beam of light caught something foreign. Deep in the rear section, inside the bumper where it couldn't be seen from the outside, a small black box was stuck to the metal. It was held on by a magnet. My heart skipped a beat. I reached up and with effort pried the device loose. It was a black plastic rectangle about the size of a matchbox. A tiny green diode was blinking barely visibly on its side. A GPS tracker. My first reaction was to call Tony immediately, to scream, to demand an explanation. How dare he? Spying on his own mother like a criminal, humiliating me with this control, all under the guise of concern? The anger rose in a hot wave to my throat. But I froze. Years of working a crowded dining room had taught me the number one rule. Emotions are the enemy of good service and common sense. If a customer screams, you turn into ice. If your son plants a bug on you and lies about the brakes, something is seriously wrong. Impulsiveness could cost me too much right now. I turned off the flashlight and went back inside. I put the tracker in a thick mailing envelope. I didn't go back to bed. I sat in the kitchen, watching the tiny green light blink through the paper, and waited for dawn. In the morning, I didn't take the car. Tony had forbidden it, after all. I dressed nicely, took a cane, more for show than need, and walked to the neighborhood police precinct. Sergeant Marcus Lee, a sturdy man with a neat mustache, sat behind the desk. I remembered him as a young officer 15 years ago. He used to stop by my diner for lunch. He loved my meatloaf. "Olympia May," he beamed, spreading a smile. "What brings you in? Is someone giving you trouble?" "Hello, Marcus." I placed the envelope on the counter. My voice was calm, businesslike. "No trouble. I just found this under my car. I want to know whose it is. Maybe some pranksters? Or maybe I just don't understand modern technology?" Marcus opened the envelope and turned the box over in his hands. The smile slid from his face. "Serious toy," he mumbled. "Not cheap. Let me run the serial number, Olympia May. Why don't you have a seat? Want some coffee?" "No, thank you. I'll go home. Call me when you find out." I walked home slowly, trying to convince myself that I would hear a simple explanation. Tony would say it was for my own good, that he was worried about where I was driving, that he was just an overprotective fool. I was ready to forgive his foolishness. Mothers are always ready to forgive foolishness. The phone rang 3 hours later. I was dusting a photograph in the living room. It was the landline from the precinct. "Olympia May." Marcus's voice was different, dry, official. It no longer held the warmth of an old acquaintance. There was metal in it. "Yes, Marcus, what did you find?" "It was Tony who put it there." The pause on the line lasted forever. I could hear someone shuffling papers. "Olympia May, listen to me closely. This device isn't registered to a private person. It's a cloned professional beacon, but that's not the worst part." I sank into the armchair, feeling my legs give out. "What do you mean, not the worst part?" "We ran the movement history on that tracker," the officer continued, clipping every word. "Your car? It hasn't been sitting in the garage at night, like you might think. Over the last week, your vehicle was recorded 3 times on the grounds of the Northside Logistics Center's cargo docks, at exactly 3 o'clock, at 3:45, and yesterday at 2:50 in the morning." "That's impossible," I whispered. "I'm asleep at that time. The car's in the garage." "The tracker says otherwise, and so do the highway surveillance cameras. Olympia May, during those exact hours, several large shipments of expensive electronics were taken from the Northside warehouses. We're preparing a warrant right now to seize your car as a tool of a crime. A team of investigators is on its way to you." The phone almost slipped from my fingers. The world tilted and settled in a nauseating equilibrium. All the pieces of the mosaic clicked into one monstrous picture. Tony wasn't worried about my safety. He wasn't checking the brakes. He was making sure the car was sound for his needs. My son, my own flesh and blood, wasn't just tracking me. He was using my car while I slept to steal. He was using my honest name, my car, my life as a cover. And when the police came, and they were already on their way, they wouldn't find him. They would find an old woman whose car was at the crime scene. He wasn't just a thief. He was setting me up. The cold that spread through my chest was worse than any pain. But with that cold came clarity. I slowly placed the receiver back on the hook. The time for tears was over. I looked at my hands. They weren't shaking. It was strange, because an entire world had just crashed down inside me, but my body remained calm, as if I were preparing to take the most difficult order in a packed dining room. The detective said the team was on its way. That meant I had, at most, 30 minutes before they knocked on the door and my life turned into a police report. I dialed Marcus's number again. "Marcus!" My voice was quiet, but hard as granite. "Don't hang up. Listen to me. You've known me for 30 years. You know I'm not a thief." "Olympia May, the facts," he began in an official tone. "To hell with the facts." I cut him off, allowing myself rudeness with an officer of the law for the first time in my life. "You remember Victor Harris, the retired captain? He ate at my diner every day until he retired. Call him right now. Tell him Olympia needs help and give me 48 hours. "I can't. This is a felony case." "You can delay the warrant. Say the tracker data needs re-verification. Say there was a system glitch. Say anything. If you take the car now, the real thief walks and I go down. Is that what you want? For Tony's mother to go to jail for something she didn't do?" A heavy silence hung on the line. I could hear his breathing. He was wavering. 48 hours, Olympia May. No more, and only if Captain Harris confirms it. He'll confirm it. Thank you, son. I hung up the phone. In that moment, the woman who was ready to forgive her son everything died. Only Olympia Jones remained in that armchair in the silence of my living room. A person who survived the 90s, raised a child alone, and never, ever allowed anyone to walk all over her, not even her own son. The tears dried before they had a chance to fall. Grief transformed into a cold, calculated fury. I needed a plan, and I needed to play my part to the end. I picked up the phone and dialed Tony's number. The rings were long and drawn out. Finally he answered. His voice was cheerful, too cheerful for a man who, as I now knew, stole in the night. "Yeah, Mom. What's up?" I took a deep breath and let out all my acting skill, accumulated over years of smiling at rude customers. "Tony, honey, hello." My voice trembled, becoming weak and pathetic. "You know, I've been thinking about what you said. You were right. Absolutely right." "About what?" A cautiousness slipped into his voice. "About the car. I tried to drive to the store today, got behind the wheel, and I was just terrified. It's so heavy, so hard to handle, and the brake pedal. I thought it sank down too far. My hands started shaking. I even turned off the engine. I'm just getting old, son. You were right. It's too dangerous for me to drive." I heard him exhale. It was the relieved sigh of a predator seeing its prey stop resisting. "See, Mom? I told you. I'm glad you finally listened to reason." Yes. I won't drive it anymore. I'll leave the keys in the mailbox like you asked. Pick it up when you can, take it to the mechanic, or do whatever you think is necessary. I'm too tired to fight." "That's my girl, Mom. Smart decision. I'll try to swing by in a couple of days. Maybe even tonight, if I can get free early, so the car isn't just sitting there broken." "Okay, Tony. The keys will be in the box." I hung up. A couple of days, sure. He would come tonight. He wouldn't miss a chance to use the car while his mother slept, confident in her uselessness. Now the second call. Leroy Lee Washington, a mechanic sent by God who had been fixing my baby for the last 10 years. A grumpy, taciturn man, but honest to the core. Lee, it's Olympia. I need your help, fast and quiet. Come through the back gate. 20 minutes later, Lee was in my garage. He silently listened to my request, never interrupting, only frowning under his thick eyebrows. "A camera, huh?" he grumbled, wiping his hands with a cloth. "Where do you want it hidden?" "No, in the garage. On the shelf among the paint cans, aimed right at the driver's door and the windshield and streaming to my tablet. Can you do that?" "You insulting me, Olympia May? I'll have it done in a flash." We worked quickly and silently. Lee installed the tiny lens between cans of varnish, camouflaging the wires with old rags. I checked the image on my ancient tablet. The angle was perfect. Anyone who came into the garage and sat in the car would be in plain sight. When Lee left, I went back into the house. I drew the curtains and turned off the lights in every room except the bedroom, where I left a nightlight on. Let them think I was asleep. I settled down in the dark kitchen with the tablet and a mug of cold tea. The clock ticked. 9 o'clock, 10, 11. Maybe I was wrong? Maybe he really would just pick up the car for repairs. Doubts, like sticky worms, started to undermine my confidence, but I pushed them away. I remembered that tracker. I remembered the cop's words about the nightly trips. Midnight. I heard the quiet sound of an engine outside. Not my car. Another one. The sound grew closer and died away around the corner, about 100 yards from the house. They didn't drive up to the gate so as not to wake me with their headlights. Smart. A minute later, the back gate squeaked. I knew that squeak. I'd meant to grease the hinge ages ago, but I'd always forgotten. Now, that sound was an alarm bell. I peered at the tablet screen. The picture was black and white, grainy, but clear enough thanks to the infrared light. The garage door, which I had deliberately left unlocked, slowly began to slide up. 2 figures appeared in the opening. Tony, in a dark jacket with a hood pulled low over his forehead. He moved quickly, with ownership, and right behind him walked her. Angie. I nearly dropped the tablet. My daughter-in-law, who always wrinkled her nose at the sight of dust, who was afraid to scuff her designer shoes, was now wearing baggy black pants and a bulky hoodie. A huge sports bag hung from her shoulder, empty, judging by how lightly it swung. "Keep it down!" Angie hissed when Tony bumped a bucket with his foot. The sound came clearly through the camera microphone, as if they were standing right next to me. "You want to wake up the old bat?" "She's sleeping," Tony dismissed, opening the driver's door of my car. "She went deaf. She complained about it herself. She probably took a handful of pills and she's knocked out." He got behind the wheel. I watched him habitually slide the seat back for his height. He had done this many times before. The movements were automatic. Angie threw her bag onto the back seat and laughed a quiet, angry laugh. "Listen, it's genius, right?" she said, walking around the car. "The old fool wants to be helpful. You tell her, 'Don't drive,' and she says, 'Thank you, son. Here's the keys.' Perfect mule. Too stupid to ask questions and too proud to check anything." "Don't call her that," Tony grumbled, turning the ignition key. The engine softly purred to life. "Oh, cut it out," she sneered, getting into the passenger seat. "She's a resource for us, Tony. Used up, but useful for now. The main thing is that this wreck holds up for a couple more runs. How many shipments do we have left to move?" 3. Today is a big one. Medical equipment. Great. Let's go. Time is money. The garage door closed behind them. The car backed out. They didn't turn on the headlights until they hit the road. I sat in the dark kitchen, staring at the empty garage on the screen. My ears were ringing with humiliation. Perfect mule. Resource. The old fool. They weren't just stealing. They were laughing at me. They despised me. All this time, while I was baking them pies and listening to their complaints about life, they were planning how to use me to the maximum before tossing me in the trash. Tony knew he was transporting medical equipment in my car. If they were stopped, if anything happened, the police would find Olympia Jones's car at the wheel. I slowly turned off the tablet. My hands finally started to shake, but now it wasn't weakness. It was adrenaline. They thought I was asleep. They thought I was deaf and blind. Well, let them think that. I got up and walked to the window. The night was dark, moonless, perfect for thievery. But dawn would come, and when it did, I would be ready. 48 hours. I had 48 hours to turn their smugness into their sentence. I went to the bedroom, but not to sleep. I took an old folder of documents from the closet. I found Captain Harris's number. It was too early to call, but I would write a message. The game had started, and I was making the rules now. I sat in the dark until 4 a.m. The tablet lay before me like an open wound, but I didn't look away from the screen. When the garage door slowly slid up again, I saw my sedan, looking like a tired beast, roll back inside. Tony and Angie got out. Even through the screen, I could feel their tension and exhaustion. Their clothes were crumpled, and there was mud on Angie's boots. They quickly, almost without speaking, checked the car's interior and grabbed their bags, now stuffed tight with something heavy, and vanished into the night, leaving the keys on the workbench, where I had forgotten them. As soon as the sound of their departing car faded, I threw on my coat and went out to the yard. The air was ice cold, pre-dawn. The garage smelled of their sweat, Angie's cheap cigarette smoke, and the sharp chemical odor of diesel exhaust. They must have been standing near running trucks for a long time. I opened the driver's door. The seat was pushed all the way back. On the floor mat were traces of a clay-like dirt that wasn't from my neighborhood but was plentiful in the industrial zone across the river. I turned on my flashlight and began methodically examining every inch of the interior. They thought they had cleaned everything, but criminals, intoxicated by impunity, always get careless. Something white was showing under the passenger side rubber mat. I hooked the edge with my finger. A sheet of paper folded into quarters apparently dropped from Angie's pocket when she was squirming in the seat. I unfolded it. It was a bill of lading. Verona Luxury Goods Invoice, number 409. The list of goods was long. Italian leather, designer bags, watches. I knew the company. Verona Imports rented warehouses at the Northside Logistics Center, the very center where, 10 years ago, humbling myself and begging old clients, I managed to get Tony a job as a junior manager. I set him up there so he could have an honest job, benefits, a future, and he used that place to rob his own employers. I carefully took a photo of the invoice with my phone, then placed the original in a plastic bag. It might have fingerprints. The morning passed in a fog. I was waiting for the call, and it came exactly at noon. "Hey, Mom!" Tony's voice rang with fake cheerfulness that made my jaw clench. "How you holding up?" "Hello, Tony. Taking it easy. My back is aching for rain, though. Listen, I picked up the car last night like I promised. Took it to a friend of mine, a mechanic at an all-night shop. He looked it over. Mom, the news isn't good." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, feeling a cold rage boil up inside. "What is it? Is it really that bad?" "Worse than bad. It's not just the brakes. The suspension is shot. The steering rack needs replacing. The repairs would cost more than the car is worth. There's no point in putting money into it." The pause was masterfully played. He was giving me time to process the tragedy. "So what should I do?" I asked in a shaky voice. "I'm so used to it." "I know, Mom, I know, but safety comes first. Listen, this mechanic knows someone who buys cars like that for parts. He's offering good money, by the way. Maybe we should sell it? You'll get rid of the headache, and the money can go toward your medicine or a nice vacation." There it was, the final movement. They didn't just want to use the car. They wanted to get rid of the evidence, sell it for scrap, dismantle it, destroy it, and get my signature on the documents to make everything clean. "Oh, Tony," I sighed heavily. "That's so sudden. I need to think. I've had it so many years." "There's nothing to think about, Mom." His impatience broke through. "It's dangerous, and it's only worth money if we sell it before it completely falls apart. I'll come by tomorrow with the papers. You just sign them, and I'll take care of everything. You won't even have to leave the house. Everything for you, Mom. Everything for you. How sweet. Okay, son. Come over tomorrow. I'll be ready. I hung up. Tomorrow. I had 24 hours left. An hour later, a knock came at the door. 3 short, 2 long. Our old signal. Captain Victor Vic Harris Sr., my old friend, walked in, leaning on a cane, but his back was straight as a young lieutenant's. He had aged and gone gray, but his eyes were the same, sharp, watchful eyes of a detective captain. Hello, Olympia. He took off his hat. Got any tea? It's cold out there. We walked to the kitchen. I silently placed the tablet with the night's video and the bag with the invoice on the table. Vic watched the video for a long time, frowning and drumming his fingers on the table. Then he took the bag, put on his reading glasses, and carefully studied the paper. When he looked up at me, I saw what I feared most in his eyes. Fear. Not for himself, but for me. Olympia, he said quietly, his face turning gray. Do you even understand what they've gotten into? Theft. Luxury imports. If that were all. Look here. He pointed a finger at the bottom line of the invoice, which I had missed. It had a code and a Latin name. Those aren't bags, Lipa. Those are components for high-precision medical diagnostic equipment, next-generation MRI machines. They are under sanction control. Their import and handling aren't monitored by the police. The FBI handles this. I felt the floor drop out from under me. The FBI? Exactly. If this shipment goes missing, it won't be the local cops looking for it. Serious people will fly in from D.C. They'll turn this city upside down. If they find traces of your car at that warehouse, you'll be looking at 10 to 15 years in a federal prison. Your Tony isn't just playing with fire. He lit the fuse on a bomb, and you're sitting on it. He paused, took off his glasses, and rubbed the bridge of his nose. This isn't just breaking and entering. It's the theft of strategic equipment as part of an organized group. 10 to 15 years. Your son is willing to sacrifice his mother for cash. I looked at my friend and understood. There was no going back. If I gave the car to Tony now, he would destroy it. But traces would remain. Cameras, phone records. The feds would find me, and no one would believe an old waitress who claimed she knew nothing. I would die in a prison infirmary. Vic, my voice was dry as an autumn leaf. What do I do? He looked at me hard. You only have one way out. You have to turn them in yourself, red-handed, before the feds knock on your door. You have to prove you were the victim, not an accomplice, and that you helped the investigation. Turn in my son? The words scratched my throat. You don't have a son anymore, Lipa, Vic cut in. You have a criminal who is ready to put his mother out to pasture for money. If you don't do this, you'll both go down. Or only you will, because they'll run. You saw their faces on the video. They won't stop. He was right. Every word was a direct hit. I need time, Vic. I need them to make a mistake. One last mistake. You don't have much time. Marcus told me they stalled the warrant, but the pressure is building. The car will be put on a wanted list by tomorrow evening. Tomorrow. I remembered Tony's call. He wanted to take the car tomorrow to sell for parts. That meant the evidence was gone. Or they think it is, Victor countered. But if they drive it off to sell, they could just torch it in the woods. You can't just hand over the keys. A plan began to form in my mind. Frightening, risky, but the only one possible. Vic, I need you here tomorrow evening, not alone, with backup. What are you planning? I'm going to make them do it again, one last time, and this time, we'll be waiting. Victor Harris looked into my eyes for a long time, then nodded. All right, I'll talk to the guys. But Lipa, are you sure you can do this? That's your child. I looked at the empty chair where little Tony once sat, smearing oatmeal on his tray. That little boy was gone. There was a man who lied to my face and stole medical equipment, condemning me to prison. I can do it, Vic, because if I don't, he'll kill me. If not with a knife, then with a life sentence. And I want to live. When Victor left, I took an old address book from my jewelry box. It had the numbers of all my former clients: Mrs. Peterson, the mail carrier; Leon Doc Stein, the pharmacist; Tammy, the baker. I needed an alibi, and I needed witnesses, not for court, but for the community, so that tomorrow, when everything went down, no one would dare say that Olympia Jones raised a thief and covered for him. I picked up the phone. It was time to activate my network. It was time to spin a web that Tony and Angie wouldn't be able to escape. I left the house as soon as the first stores opened. My route was planned meticulously. First, to Tammy's bakery. She always loved to talk, and the news from her shop spread through the neighborhood faster than her hot cross buns. "Olympia May," Tammy beamed, wiping her hands on her apron. "The usual? Half a loaf of rye?" "Yes, Tammy, and 2 poppy seed rolls. Tony loves them. He's been working so hard lately, the poor boy. He's even working nights." "No kidding?" Tammy perked up her ears. "I thought he had an office job." "He did." I sighed, feigning a mix of pride and motherly worry. "But there's such a backlog at the logistics center that he volunteered to drive urgent deliveries. Even using my car at night, can you believe it? His own is in the shop. So he takes his old lady's ride. He says, 'Mom, you sleep and I'll work.' Such a hard worker." Tammy nodded, soaking up every word. By lunchtime, half the neighborhood would know that Tony Jones was driving his mother's car at night for work. This was my first alibi, not for the police, but for the people. If anyone saw the car by the warehouses, it was Tony, the hard worker. Next was the pharmacy. Doc Stein, an old intellectual, always listened attentively. I complained to him about my insomnia. "I hear my son take the car at 3 in the morning. The garage door squeaks and I can't get back to sleep. I worry about him out on the road." By evening, the city knew Tony was driving Olympia May's car. I destroyed his main cover, silence. Now, his nightly trips were a fact of public life. Returning home, I did the one thing that would corner the rat. I called Tony. "Son," I began as soon as he picked up. My voice was filled with resolve, that stubborn, old woman resolve that is impossible to argue with. "I've been thinking about selling the car." "Yeah, Mom?" He brightened up. "I already prepared the documents. Tomorrow?" "No, Tony, I'm not selling it." Silence hung in the air, tense, ringing. "What do you mean?" His voice dropped. "Mom, we agreed. The repairs cost more than the car is worth. It's junk." "Don't talk about it that way. That car served me faithfully. And I've decided if it has to go, let it serve a good cause. I called the police, their charitable foundation. They collect old cars for cadet training or parts for patrol cars. I'm driving it to the precinct myself tomorrow morning and donating it to them for free. It'll be my contribution to law and order." I heard a sound in the receiver, like he was choking on air. "What did you do?" he gasped. "Called the police?" "Yes. I made arrangements with the desk sergeant. Tomorrow at 9 in the morning. "No!" he screamed. I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Are you crazy? Mom, the brakes don't work. You'll kill yourself. You'll kill someone. I forbid it." Panic. Pure animal panic. He imagined forensic experts in the police garage examining the car he used to transport stolen goods. Even if he cleaned everything out, microparticles, fibers, dust, it was all still there. And what if something was still hidden? "Tony, don't shout at your mother." I calmly brought him back down. "I'll drive slowly." "You are not going anywhere," he shrieked. "You hear me? I'm coming over now. I'll check everything one more time. Maybe I can fix the brakes so you can drive safely. Let me come over tonight. Right now." The fish took the bait. Hook, line, and sinker. He needed to get to the car before morning. He needed to make sure it was clean or make sure it never made it to the police. "All right," I surrendered. "Come tonight, but only to fix it." Yes, fix it. Wait for me." I hung up and looked at the clock. 6 in the evening. I had 3 or 4 hours. I started preparing. I cleared the table of anything unnecessary and checked the camera in the garage. working. I checked the tablet. Fully charged. Then I went to the garage. I needed to make sure they couldn't leave quickly if things went wrong. My gaze fell on the spare tire well. The trunk mat was uneven, sticking up slightly. Strange. Tony and Angie were always so meticulous in their criminal activities. I lifted the mat. The well cover wasn't latched. I opened it. The spare was in place, but inside the wheel, in the recess, lay a thick bundle wrapped in black plastic. My heart hammered in my throat. I carefully peeled back the edge. Money. Stacks of $20 bills. Rubber banded. A lot of money. A whole lot. But that wasn't all. Under the money was an envelope. I peered inside. A plane ticket, one way, flying out tomorrow morning from the regional airport. A flight to Dubai, in the name of Angela Victoria Rodriguez. Only one name. There was no ticket for Anthony Jones. I sat on the edge of the trunk, clutching the glossy paper. The picture was complete, and it was even more cynical than I could have imagined. Angie wasn't just using me. She was using Tony, too. He was as much a mule to her as I was. She was planning to flee tomorrow morning with the money, leaving her husband to clean up the aftermath of the theft and deal with the police and possibly the FBI. And me? I would have been the perfect scapegoat, the old woman on whom the guilt for storing stolen goods in the garage could be pinned. That's why she was in such a hurry. That's why they took such risks. This was the finish line. I carefully wrapped everything back up and put it in place, exactly as it was. My hands were ice cold, but my mind was clear as a frosty morning. They weren't coming to fix the brakes. They were coming for their retirement fund, and most likely to do something to the car so no forensic expert would find anything afterward, like setting it on fire right here, in my garage, along with the house. I went back inside and called Victor Harris. "Vic," I said softly. "The plan is changing. It's speeding up. They are coming tonight, and they are not alone. They've got baggage." "I understand," he replied curtly. "We'll be ready. Don't try to be a hero, Lipa. Just open the door for them." "I'll open it," I answered, "but I'll be the one closing it too." I sat in the armchair by the window, overlooking the driveway, placing the garage door remote in my lap, the little box Lee had given me. The button under my thumb felt hot. The wait wouldn't be long. Soon my son would come to betray me one last time, and his wife would come to betray him, and I would watch it happen. I would be a witness to their ruin. Headlights flashed at the end of the street. They were coming. The darkness in the living room was thick, like cotton wool, but I didn't turn on the light. I sat in the chair, blending with the shadows, and only the screen of my phone, on which I had forwarded the photo of the ticket and the stacks of money to Vic, faintly glowed in my lap. The reply came instantly. A thumbs up emoji. That meant the tactical team was in place. They were waiting at the end of the street in an unmarked van, ready to move on my signal. Tony's black SUV, the one he bought on credit 6 months ago, rolled silently up to the house and stopped, blocking the exit from my garage. The headlights went out, the engine quieted. They didn't go to the front door, they didn't ring the bell. I heard a quiet scraping sound, metal on ceramic. They were moving the flower pot on the porch under which I kept the spare key. The very key I had supposedly lost 3 months ago and complained to Tony about. He had merely shrugged and told me to change the lock. Of course, I hadn't changed the lock, and he, it turned out, had found the key and kept it. The door softly clicked and eased open. I held my breath. They entered the hallway, trying to be quiet, but in the silence of the old house, every step echoed with a floorboard creak. "She's asleep." Angie's whisper was sharp, nervous. "The lights are all off." "She's asleep," Tony grunted. "Let's get to the garage, fast. Grab the money and split. What about the car?" "We'll deal with the car right here," she cut him off. "Just get the cash and the documents." They walked past the living room, where I sat, not noticing me in the deep armchair. I saw their silhouettes in the light of the street lamp filtering through the window. Both had large bags and bottles in their hands, plastic bottles with clear liquid. The smell of bleach hit my nose when they opened the door leading directly from the house to the garage. They hadn't come to fix the brakes. They had come to destroy the evidence. I waited a few seconds and silently walked to the window overlooking the backyard. My garage was a drive-through, with gates to the street and a door into the house. The light inside flashed brightly, cutting into my eyes. Through a gap in the curtain, I could see everything. Tony rushed to the trunk. He yanked up the mat, opened the spare tire well. "Is it there?" he gasped, pulling out the bundle of money. "All here." "Whew, I thought the old woman found it." Angie, meanwhile, was pouring the liquid from the bottle all over the back seat and the floor. "Pour more," she hissed. "Make sure not a single molecule of DNA is left. The smell will be awful. We'll say you spilled some pool cleaner when you were taking it to the cabin." Tony was shoving the stacks of cash into his bag. His hands were shaking. "Angie, maybe that's enough? Let's just take the money and leave. She's giving the car to the cops tomorrow. They'll figure it out themselves." Angie spun around to face him. In the bright garage light, her face was twisted with fury and contempt. "Are you an idiot, Tony?" She walked right up to him. "The cops will find traces, find microparticles, and they'll come straight for you. Do you want to go to jail?" "I don't want to go to jail. I want this to be over." "It'll be over when we get rid of the evidence. Listen to me. We leave the money here." Tony froze, a stack of bills in his hand. "Are you crazy?" "We leave some of the money here." She snatched a few bundles from him and threw them into the corner of the garage, behind old tires. A box she took from her bag followed. "And this, too." "What is that?" Tony stared at her in horror. "Parts from that tomography machine we didn't manage to fence. Let them sit here." "Why?" "So tomorrow morning, when your mother drives the car to the police, we make an anonymous call. We say that Mrs. Jones's garage is a storage facility for stolen goods. The police will come, find the car, the money, and the parts. And who will they arrest?" "The old woman. And we'll act shocked. We'll say we knew nothing, that Mom went crazy in her old age and got mixed up with criminals." I stood by the window and felt something snap inside me, like a taut string breaking with a deafening twang. They weren't just setting me up. They were planning to bury me, alive. My son stood there and listened as his wife proposed sending me to prison to save their own hides. But that's Mom," Tony weakly protested. "That's your ticket to freedom," Angie snarled. "Or do you want me to fly off alone while you rot on the cell block? Choose." Tony was silent. He looked at the money in the corner, at his wife, at the car. And I watched the last spark of conscience die in his eyes. He nodded. "Fine. Do what you think is best. Just be quick." This was the end. My son no longer existed. Before me was a stranger, an enemy. I took the small remote from my pocket that Lee had given me. It had only one red button, the perimeter lock. Lee hadn't just installed a camera. He had upgraded the gate's automation. Now they could close not just slowly, but completely, engaging electronic locks that could only be opened with this remote. I pressed the button. A heavy drone of motors sounded in the garage. The gate doors, which were wide open, began to slowly, inexorably slide down. Tony and Angie flinched. "What did you push?" Angie yelled. "I didn't push anything." Tony rushed to the button on the wall, stabbing at it frantically. "It's not working. It's jammed." The gates crashed down with a clang, cutting off the path to the street. The locks clicked shut like a pistol's bolt. They were trapped in the concrete box of my garage, alone with their greed and betrayal. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and flipped the light switch in the hallway. Time to step onto the stage. I swung open the inner garage door and stepped onto the threshold. The bright light hit my eyes, but I didn't flinch. I stood on the top step, wrapped in my old wool shawl, looking down at them. In one hand, I gripped the printout of that one-way ticket to Dubai. In the other, my phone with Victor Harris's chat open. "Mom?" Tony stumbled back from the closed gates as if he had seen a ghost. His face was chalk white, and his eyes darted around, trying to find an exit from the trap he had set for himself. Angie froze, the bottle of bleach in her hand. For a second, fear flashed across her face, but it was instantly replaced by a mask of arrogant contempt. She straightened up, tossing the bottle into the corner. "Open the gates, you old witch!" she spat. "The mechanism is jammed. Let us out right now." "The mechanism is working perfectly, Angie." My voice was calm, loud, and clear. Years of working in a noisy diner taught me to speak so that I could be heard even over the clatter of dishes and the buzz of conversation. I checked it myself just as thoroughly as the brakes that Tony claimed were broken. I slowly descended the steps onto the concrete floor. They backed away. It was strange. I was an unarmed elderly woman, and they were young and strong, but fear radiated from them in waves. Fear that their dirty little world was collapsing. "What are you talking about?" Tony tried to smile, but it was a pathetic grimace. "Mom, we came to surprise you. Clean the interior before the sale. Why did you lock us in?" "A surprise." I held up my hand with the printout. "The same kind of surprise as this one-way ticket." I tossed the paper at his feet. It floated onto the concrete like a white flag of surrender. Tony looked down, read the name and date. His eyebrows shot up. He slowly turned his head toward his wife. "Angie, what is this? A ticket to Dubai?" Angie was silent, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Did you know she was flying out tomorrow, Tony?" I asked, never taking my eyes off him. "Alone? Or were you too busy pouring bleach on my car to notice your wife packing her bags for herself?" It's a mistake," he mumbled, looking at his wife with the bewildered expression of a beaten dog. "Angie, tell her. We were going together later, once everything settled down." "Idiot!" Angie shrieked, losing control. She realized the game was over, and the masks were no longer needed. "What an idiot you are, Tony. Did you really think I'd wait for you to get out of jail or drag dead weight behind me? You're a loser. You couldn't even steal from your own mother properly." She lunged at me. Her face was contorted with rage. "Give me the remote, now!" She raised her hand, intending to snatch the fob from my grasp. Tony intercepted her arm. "Don't touch her!" he yelled. But there was more desperation than protectiveness in his voice. "Let go!" She struggled, scratching his face with her manicured nails. "We're going to be busted because of you and your crazy mother, you old fool. Do you even realize what you've done? You've ruined us all." "No, sweetheart." I shook my head, feeling an astonishing lightness. The fear was gone. Only disgust remained. "I didn't ruin you. You chose this path yourselves. I just turned on the light so you could see where it leads." "Who are you going to tell this to?" Angie tore herself from her husband's grasp and backed away toward the car, breathing heavily. "The police? Who will believe you? You're a senile old woman. We'll say you forced Tony to do this, that you blackmailed him with your inheritance, that the stolen goods in the garage were your idea. It's your word against ours, and we're younger and more convincing. And you're nobody." She smiled triumphantly, thinking she had found a loophole. Tony stared at her in horror, finally realizing who he had been living with all these years. I smiled back. It was a sad, weary smile. I didn't pity myself. I pitied the time, the love I had wasted raising the man who stood before me now, not even daring to look me in the eye. "You're right, Angie," I said quietly. "It might be hard for a beat cop to figure out. Old ladies are rarely believed when it comes to their beloved sons, but they don't have to believe me." I raised my hand and pointed to the dark corner of the garage, where behind the tool racks there was another door leading to a storage room they had forgotten in their haste. "They just need to believe the captain of detectives." The storage room door burst open. Captain Harris stepped out of the darkness. He was in his old uniform coat, complete with metal ribbons on his chest. Behind him stood two burly SWAT officers in masks, assault rifles at the ready. "Good evening, folks." Victor Harris's voice boomed in the confined space of the garage like a judgment. "Hands where I can see them, slowly." Angie shrieked and backed up, hitting her spine against the car hood. Tony simply sank to the floor, covering his head with his hands. "Captain," he whispered. "It's Victor Harris to you," my friend snapped, signaling the officers. "Take them!" The SWAT officers moved quickly and forcefully. A second later, Tony and Angie were lying face down on the concrete floor, their wrists snapped into handcuffs. I stood there and watched. My garage, my fortress, had been desecrated by their presence, their greed, their filth. But now, the air was beginning to clear. Victor walked over to me and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You okay, Lipa?" "I'm fine, Vic," I replied, looking at my son, who was lying in a puddle of spilled bleach, quietly whimpering. "I'm just taking out the trash." But the show wasn't over. Angie still had one last card up her sleeve, and squirming under the officer's knee, she intended to play it. And Tony? Tony had something in his pocket that was meant to be the final nail in my coffin, something I hadn't even suspected. "He made me do it!" Angie's piercing scream cut the echoing silence of the garage. She writhed on the floor, trying to turn her head toward Victor. "Hear me, Anthony? He threatened me, said his mother had a bunch of money, that she was a secret millionaire and we could take it all. I was afraid of him. I'm the victim." Her voice broke into a high-pitched squeal. Her makeup ran, turning her beautiful face into a mask of a deranged clown. In that moment, she looked like a cornered rat, ready to chew off her own offspring's throat just to save herself. Tony, who had been lying quietly until then, twitched as if he'd been electrocuted. His wife's immediate and absolute betrayal broke through even his shock. "What are you saying?" he screamed, trying to get up, but the officer brutally pressed his face into the concrete. "What millionaire? You made it all up. You found the scheme. You said Mom was old and wouldn't notice anything." He's lying, Angie wailed. "He's a drug addict, a gambler. Check his accounts. He lost everything and decided to rob his mother." The scene was sickening. Two people who, 5 minutes ago, were a family, allies ready to flee to a new life together, were now drowning each other in filth, trying to bargain for a single drop of leniency. Tony stopped struggling against the officers. He suddenly went limp and began to cry, loudly, uncontrollably, like a child. He turned his head toward me, tears mixed with the dust on his cheeks. "Mom, Mommy," he whimpered in the same tone he used to beg for ice cream when he was 5. "Mom, tell them, please. I'm your son. I'm your Tony. I have debts, Mom. Serious people. They threatened to kill me. I didn't mean to. I was just scared. Don't let them take me. Pity me. You're my mother." He crawled toward me as far as the handcuffs and the officer holding him would allow. The officer looked inquiringly at Victor Harris. He gave a slight nod, and the officer eased his grip, allowing Tony to crawl a foot and clutch the hem of my coat with his bound hands. "Mom, forgive me," he sobbed, burying his face in the fabric. "I'll fix everything. I'll work it off. Just not jail. I'll die in there. Have mercy on me. You're my mother." For a second, just one tiny fraction of a second, my heart wavered. It was an instinct as old as time, the instinct to protect your child, no matter what a monster he had become. I remembered his small, warm hands when he was learning to walk. I remembered him sleeping in my arms with a high fever. But then I looked up. I saw my car, my baby, permeated with the smell of bleach and betrayal. I saw the corner of the garage where they had thrown the stolen parts to frame me. I saw Angie, looking at her husband with disgust and hatred, and I understood. The little boy I remembered was gone. He had died many years ago, and I simply hadn't noticed the funeral. Before me was not a son. Before me was a thief, a coward, and a traitor who was ready to sell my freedom for a plane ticket to Dubai for his wife. I slowly but decisively stepped back. The coat fabric slipped from his fingers. Tony froze, staring at his empty hands, then looked up at me, his eyes full of disbelief. "Mom." "I am a mother, Tony," I said quietly. My voice didn't tremble. It held the steel forged in the fire of this night. "And as a mother, I was obliged to teach you the most important thing. You have to answer for your actions. I taught you that when you were a child, but you didn't listen. Now life will teach you, and the lesson will be a long one. I turned to Victor Harris. "Book them, Captain. I've said all I have to say. I'll sign the statement at the precinct." Victor nodded. "Get them up," he commanded the officers. Tony was yanked to his feet. He wasn't crying anymore. He looked at me with dull hatred. The mask of the victim had fallen away, revealing his true face, malicious and petty. "You'll regret this, you old hag," he hissed. "You'll die alone in this house, and no one will bring you a glass of water." "I'd rather that than live with rats," I answered. The officers began searching the detainees before leading them to the car. One of the operatives, a young lieutenant, pulled a wallet from Tony's inside jacket pocket and began placing the contents on the hood of my car. Credit cards, a driver's license, crumpled receipts, and a document folded in three on thick paper with a blue stamp. The lieutenant unfolded it, scanned it, and frowned. "Captain, take a look." He handed the paper to Victor. Victor Harris took the document and held it up to the light. I watched his face turn to stone. The muscles in his jaw clenched. He slowly looked up at Tony. In the old detective's eyes, there wasn't just contempt. There was a desire to kill. "What is it, Vic?" I asked, feeling a new chill creep toward my heart. Victor hesitated, as if deciding whether I should know this. Then he silently handed me the paper. It was a life insurance policy. Insured party, Jones, Olympia May. Beneficiary, Jones, Anthony. Date issued 3 days ago. I scanned the fine print. The sum was huge, but my gaze caught on one item circled with a marker. Double indemnity in case of the insured's death resulting from a transportation accident, car crash. The world around me faded. Sounds vanished. Only the pounding of blood in my ears remained. He didn't just want to set me up if he got caught. He was waiting for me to crash. He told me the brakes were faulty, not just to take the car. He hoped that I, old and careless, would actually believe the fault, panic on the road, and crash. Or perhaps he planned to help the brakes fail himself if I hadn't agreed to give him the car. 3 days ago. He took out this policy 3 days ago. He planned my death as a financial backup plan. I slowly looked up at my son. He didn't look away. There was no remorse in his eyes, only annoyance. The annoyance of a gambler who lost a big payout. "Take them away," Victor said quietly. "Fast, before I choke him myself." The officers dragged them toward the exit. Angie started screaming for a lawyer again. Tony was silent, hunched over. When the gates closed behind them and the rumble of the police van faded in the distance, I was left standing in the middle of the garage, clutching that terrible sheet of paper. Victor walked over and gently took the policy from me. "This will go into the file, Lipa, as proof of intent. This is an aggravating factor. He's going away for a long time, a very long time." "I know," I replied. I felt empty, burnt to ashes. But in that emptiness, something new was taking root. Freedom. Terrible, expensive, but absolute freedom. "Come inside," Victor said. "I'll put on some tea. You need to warm up." I nodded. I looked at my car for the last time that night. She had endured, and I had endured. We closed the garage and went into the house. A long night of interrogation and paperwork lay ahead, but the worst was over. I had survived, and I was free. 6 months passed. This winter had been long and snowy, but spring had finally asserted itself, washing the last of the icy crust and gray slush from the asphalt. Today was a special day. I stood in the garage, which now smelled only of lavender and old leather. My burgundy sedan shone in the morning sun. It had spent a month in the impound lot as evidence. But Victor Harris, true to his word, had navigated all the bureaucratic circles of hell to get my property returned to me early. Lee had spent a week cleaning the interior to a sterile condition, replacing all the filters, and even reupholstering the back seat so nothing would remind me of that night. I ran my hand over the warm hood. The car was ready, and I was ready. The house behind me stood quiet and empty. There were no unnecessary things in it, and no photos of Tony on the mantelpiece. I had packed them away in a box and taken them to the attic. I hadn't thrown them away. After all, memory can't just be erased. but I had put them out of sight. The trial was swift and harsh. The insurance policy was the nail that securely sealed the coffin of their defense. Tony and Angie received long, real prison sentences. I didn't attend the sentencing. Victor told me the numbers. I nodded and closed that chapter. I opened the driver's door and got behind the wheel. The seat hugged me with familiar comfort. I turned the key. The engine responded instantly, purring smoothly and powerfully like a satisfied cat. No strange noises, no dangerous play, only reliability. On the passenger seat lay not a bag of groceries or clinic prescriptions. A road map lay there. A red marker drew a thick line across the entire country, south toward the ocean, the very ocean I had dreamed about for 20 years, saving every penny first for Tony's college, then for his wedding, then for his condo. I put the car in drive. The garage gates slowly slid up, opening my view to the sun-drenched street. I pulled out of the driveway, not looking back at the windows of my house. I knew I would return, but it would be a different Olympia. The car moved easily on the highway, as if it wanted to carry me far away from this city. I turned on the radio. Some good old song about the open road was playing, and surprisingly, I started singing along. 3 hours into the drive, I felt a pleasant tiredness. A sign for a roadside diner, the Cozy Corner, appeared ahead. I turned into the parking lot. Inside, it smelled of coffee and fried onions. A young waitress, just a girl, rushed behind the counter, her eyes tired and a strand of hair falling loose. She was running ragged between 3 tables, mixing up orders and dropping napkins. The customers, 2 truck drivers, grumbled. I took a corner table. The girl ran up to me a minute later, breathing heavily. "Sorry, we're slammed. What can I get you?" "Just black coffee, honey, and take your time." She nodded gratefully and rushed off. I watched her. In her movements, in her effort, I recognized myself 40 years ago. The same rush, the same desire to please everyone, the same fear of making a mistake. She brought the coffee. The cup rattled against the saucer. Her hands were shaking. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I smiled at her, not a professional customer smile, but the warm smile of someone who understands everything. I took a large bill from my wallet, much more than the coffee cost, and more than people usually leave for a tip in places like this. "It's okay," I said, covering her hand with mine. "You're doing just fine. Just one piece of advice from an old colleague." The girl froze, looking at me in surprise. "What is it?" "Check your mirrors, honey," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "And not just in the car. Sometimes the most dangerous things hide in the blind spots, where we only see what we want to see, where we trust without looking." She blinked, processing my words. I'll remember that. Thank you." I finished my coffee, stood up, and went outside. The spring wind hit my face with the scent of freedom and melted snow. The bell above the door jingled, seeing me off. That sound was like a final gong. Round finished. The winner leaves the ring on her own 2 feet. I got in the car, checked the mirrors, the habit was now an iron rule, and drove onto the highway. Ahead of me was the horizon, the sea, and a whole life that, as it turned out, was just beginning. Friends, the story of Olympia May Jones has come to an end. It's a heavy, poignant story and, unfortunately, frighteningly real. We often talk about unconditional motherly love, sacrifice, and forgiveness. But where is the line where forgiveness becomes complicity and love turns into blindness? What do you think? Did Olympia do the right thing? It was a terrifying choice to send her only son to prison with her own hands. Could she have acted differently? Tried to save him, talk to him, give him the car, and just forget about everything? Or did Tony's betrayal, the insurance policy, the attempt to frame his mother for prison, leave her no chance for mercy? Write in the comments whose side you are on. Could you have pressed that button on the remote? This story makes us think about how often, in loving our family, we fail to notice what they are turning into. We see them as we want to see them, little children who need protection. And in the blind spot, cynicism and cruelty grow. If this story touched you, If it made your heart beat faster, please support our channel by liking this video. It's the best way to say thank you to us. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new audiobooks. We still have many breathtaking stories in store for you. And of course, we look forward to your comments, your thoughts, your emotions, your life experience. That's what we work for. We wish you all the best. At the end of this video, a window will appear in the center of the screen. Click on it to watch our other most captivating stories. Take care of yourself and your loved ones, but don't forget to check your mirrors.